D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you. Derek Mason is back today, but he will be joining Jake Lyman from 3 to 6 today and tomorrow, as Jared takes yet another vacation. Although I did see Jared is co-hosting, or did co-host because it's over now. Jared co-hosted a show on SiriusXM with Caroline Fenton today. So I guess Jared's not really on vacation.
Yeah,
he's just on vacation from us. Who's to say?
What's up with that?
What is up with that indeed? I do also want to give a shout out to our sister station, Totally Hits 93.3, because Willie, they played back-to-back two of my all-time favorite songs, one right after the other, and it put me in a great mood. Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode, immediately followed by Your Love by The Outfield. One right after the other. You could not have asked for a better double whammy than that.
Solid 1-2 punch there. Maybe David can, run it back. We have access to their library, I'm sure, us being in the same building, right? We could bring that back out of a break.
We'll
see. Enjoy the Silence, by the way. I had the album Violator.
Violator, yes.
Depeche Mode, back in the day. Went to the concert when they were on tour at the Sun Dome in Tampa back in the day. Great show. I've seen Depeche Mode a couple times.
Before we came on the air, I found Jim from Woody and Jim, and I said, excellent choices of songs right there. Excellent choices.
What did he say?
He agreed.
He did?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see those guys. They haven't, they move with the times. They're going back to the classics with those hits. So I'm wondering what their favorites are in their library. So I didn't know if they would concur with your assessment, but I'm all in on both of those songs.
One of our texters, Dylan, on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, says, I love how Jared is always on top of JG. Who's JG? Maybe he meant JS, Jeffrey Simmons, or Chicaconquo. I don't know. I love how Jared is always on top of JG for taking vacations and not focusing on his job when he's doing the exact same thing right now. LOL. We're just having fun. But I did find it interesting that Jared is on vacation, yet still found time to co-host a Sirius XM program this morning with Caroline Fenn. So
it's a complicated human.
That's one way to describe Jared Stillman. That is for sure. So, Willie, yesterday we mentioned on the show that the NHL schedule was going to be released. It has indeed been released. The Nashville Predators will open the season October 9th at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we are not going to do a full schedule analysis, but I know that you take a good hard look at the schedule because that's your travel schedule. That was the first thing that I thought when I looked at the schedule. I said, I wonder when Willie's not going to be here. And as you looked at this schedule, I know there were a few things that stood out to you.
As we speculated, when you have an Olympic break that everybody's got, and then on top of it, you've got a break in the schedule for the Global Series in Stockholm, you create a lot of congestion in the other parts of the schedule. And so I was holding my breath because you knew it was not going to be easy to read they have some because these are wonderful things, right? I think we're very much looking forward, especially after the Four Nations. I think the Olympics this year, with all of the best players playing for the first time in a long time, that's going to be a tremendous tournament. And the Stockholm trip is going to be memorable, I'm sure. It's going to be great. But the price you pay on the other side is a very compressed schedule. So there's some really funky road trips in there. I think the travel is going to be a big theme of the season, the challenge of the season. For example, there's 13 back-to-backs, which is not a huge number. It's a little high for them, but it's to be expected with what we talked about. But 5 home road back-to-backs. That's a lot. But you got to get the games in somehow, right? 3 home back-to-backs. That's high. You usually don't see the Predators, especially with control of the building the way they have. They're the number one tenant, not like some teams that share the building with the NBA. Those teams might, like the Rangers, they might have to play more home back-to-backs. 3 home back-to-backs is not usually what the Predators try to do. They try to take advantage of that they control the dates and they can spread out their home games a little easier. So that's a big one. And how about this road trip for you? And it's not all in one shot, but first of all, the holidays, Thanksgiving, going to be on the road the day before and the day after Thanksgiving. That's no fun. And before Christmas, you end with an up and back to Minnesota. You have, again, the travel day of game on December 27th. It's a deja vu because last year on December 27th, remember how well they had played going into Christmas? Really well. And you had a little bit of hope. Then they went to St. Louis and got destroyed out of the gate. That's you get a rematch in that. Same thing. Why they have to do that 2 years in a row against the same team? I don't understand that. I think it's a disadvantage for the road team. I could be wrong. And then after that, you have this road trip. Utah, Vegas, Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton.
Yikes.
It's a long, long road trip. So 7 straight on the road, all told. So you balance it out with they have a lot of home stretches and things like that. They have they'll have to make do. The schedule is the schedule. I'm sure every team looks at their schedule and complains to some degree. But this one I think is unique to me.
The Predators' longest homestand of the season is right out of the gate in October, which is no surprise. That's what it usually is. They have a 5-game homestand from October 21st through 28th against Anaheim, Vancouver, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Tampa Bay. But now we know the Predator schedule. We know that our show will be back at Bridgestone Arena October 9th for the season opener against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Stephanie on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com, says, fellow Depeche Mode fans, and you guys talk Preds. That is the sweetest perfection. If you know Violator, you get that reference.
I'm with you.
We hear you, Stephanie.
That's one of the lesser known tracks from that album, but if you know, you know.
You know.
Here's one more for you. You tell me what the scheduling sense is for this. The one trip to California, unfortunately, this is another drag for those of us who enjoy the NHL cities.
But you know what? I did think of you early in the season. First road trip, back-to-back, I believe in Ottawa and Toronto. Day off in Montreal.
Yes.
I saw that for you, and I said, Willie's going to love this.
I think Hal Gill's eyes perked up when he saw that. He's like, oh, okay, we're off to a good start.
Early October, day off in Montreal.
Yeah, that's not all bad. We will take full advantage because we've had some back end of back-to-backs in Montreal. So, again, enjoy the league's finer places. Tell me what sense this makes. We get the draw of there's 2 trips to Western Canada, only 1 to California. Sometimes it's flip-flopped. So, and both of the trips to Western Canada are in the dead of winter. So get the layers, get the overcoat. But here's the trip to California. You tell me what sense this makes. April 2nd at Los Angeles. April 4th at San Jose. Okay. April 6th at Los Angeles. Why don't we just stay in Los Angeles and play 2 games? What's up with that? I've never seen that before.
We need to find the NHL equivalent of our friend Mike North from the NFL.
Yes.
And have him on.
Well, the guy exists, and he gets pummeled every year at the broadcast meetings. And to his credit, he stands up there and he takes the questions.
So you make sure you ask him at these broadcast meetings.
I will. Well, the general question I think a lot of people have every year, because I think this happened last year, maybe Seattle, if I'm thinking that correctly. But there was another time. Winnipeg is another one where it just seems much more reasonable. Go up and play them twice. Have Winnipeg come down here and play twice. Save the gas. I know the sentiment is there's different people are hurt, different people coming into the lineup, out of the lineup, the building availability, but there's got to be a better way. Just let's play some 2-game series. And it doesn't have to be home and home. You can play 2 straight games in the same building. I've come around to that. But 4 days apart? What are we doing?
I remember several years ago when the Winnipeg Jets became the Winnipeg Jets, and before the former Atlanta Thrashers moved into the Central Division, the Winnipeg Jets played a season in the Southeast Division with geographic rivals Washington, Carolina, Florida, and Tampa Bay.
Because they were Atlanta, right?
They were Atlanta. So Winnipeg spent a year in the Southeast Division.
Yes.
And I remember as I was living in Washington and covering the Capitals at the time, the Capitals went up there and stayed for a few days and played a couple games in Winnipeg because it didn't make sense to go back and forth.
But why aren't we still doing that?
That's a question for
especially
the scheduling
with
man.
Utah and Seattle in the league, two Western teams that take a while to get to. This should be a bigger part, I think, of the schedule. So the Predators will play at LA, day off at San Jose, day off back to LA, and then, which happens a lot, back to back in Anaheim.
Yep.
And then off to Utah.
Makes sense.
It's another really, really taxing road trip there.
That'll be an interesting one to pack for in terms of what kind of clothes you bring.
Yeah, like April in Salt Lake, you feel like you got a shot to not freeze.
We will revisit this.
We will.
But the Predators' schedule is out. They open the season at home against Columbus on October 9th. Now, Willie, we sports talk radio hosts, we come from different walks of life. We have different approaches to this craft. We have different influences. But there is one thing that we all have in common. We love lists. We all love lists, especially at this time of year.
Oh, yes.
There is nothing better than a good list. List. And The Athletic heard our prayers. The Athletic answered those prayers by ranking all 136 projected starters in FBS for this coming college football
We've got to talk
season.
to Mitch Light about this. I wonder.
This is for the sickos.
Yeah.
136 FBS projected starters. It's one thing when it's the NFL and you have 32? And that's difficult enough. 136 FBS projected starters ranked by Sam Kahn Jr. and Antonio Morales over at The Athletic.
I'm going to get a quote from Mitch Light before this show is over. I feel like he'll respond. He will. He's a regular contributor to our show. He is one of the editors at The Athletic. He once edited one Adam Vingan.
And still edits Joe Rexrode.
Did he have to edit this list of 136 college football quarterbacks? Because that's his area right now is college football.
To put it into perspective, number 136, Josh Johnson, the projected quarterback at Air Force. He is at the bottom of the list.
Can you imagine Josh seeing this and calling home, Mom, I'm at 136. And then his buddies from home texting and say, he needs the right friend group, I think, for support when you're at 136.
Yes.
And you've got the message got to be, you are not 136. You are not.
You are 133.
You are no lower than 119. And your goal is to get inside of the top 110.
So the only place you can go, Josh Johnson,
is up.
This
is the positive spin that his friend group, his mom, his family need.
So I was curious, of course, to see where some of the local / semi-local quarterbacks would be on this list. Diego Pavia, number 15 on the list of 136. He's in Tier 2. Tier 2 is described as winners who have proven their mettle. They can carry the team, but may have limitations when it comes to certain traits or question marks about their consistency. So, Diego Pavia, number 15. And the blurb within Pavia's little box here, Quote, Pavia is not the biggest, strongest, or fastest, but he produces. He led SEC quarterbacks with 801 rushing yards. He's slippery, able to elude elite SEC rushers, whether scrambling to throw or looking for ground gains, and his competitive edge is off the charts. His performance in the Commodores' win over Alabama will live in SEC lore, but he's also the biggest reason they logged their first winning record since 2013. He's accurate in the RPO game and underneath throws, a group of 5 head coach said, but he's the epitome of what you want in an alpha. So Diego Pavia, the 15th ranked FBS starting quarterback out of 136.
It's so hard.
To The Athletic.
It's, when we do this for the NFL, it's a lot easier to reference all of the other quarterbacks above and below on the immediate part of the list and say, okay, I think he's better than this guy. I don't think he's as good as this guy. This is wrong. But you just have such a small, limited feel for a list that's so long. So 15 was a little bit surprisingly high for me. I would have thought top 25, but 15 is strong. But that's a really good assessment of what his strengths are. He's not an athletic freak. He wills himself to making plays. He is sneaky accurate on the run under pressure. He has a great feel for the offense. He has mastered that offense. If he can take one more step forward with the downfield throws, and they can give him a little more protection so he has time to make those downfield throws. And then the other element is, can they come up with one more ingredient that's a threat down the field? That would help him a lot maintain this. If he ends the season as the 15th best quarterback in the country, I think good things would be happening over on West End.
So some other notable names that have Tennessee ties. Josh Hoover from TCU, who you may recall the Volunteers reportedly tried to sweat. Poach. Yes.
Tamper. Sorry. I didn't mean to say tamper.
Josh Hoover is number 9 on this list at TCU. Arch Manning at number 10. Nico Iamaleava, number 19.
Has anybody ever heard of this guy?
Number 19. It says here he plays for UCLA. So Nico Iamaleava at 19. Joey Aguilar, the projected quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers, leads off Tier 5 at number 60. So there you go. I also do want to give a shout out. I have to find him here. David, you could help me properly pronounce his last name. Nicholas Vadiato, the return Vadiato for Middle Tennessee, number 80 on the list.
All right.
But Diego Pavia, I was surprised by 15 as well. I agree with you. When I clicked on this, I expected to see Pavia in the top 25. He is in Tier 2. The top 10 just for kicks and giggles in Tier 1. Kay Klubnik from Clemson, number 1. Garrett Nussmeier of LSU, number 2. Lenora Sellers of South Carolina, number 3. John Mateer from Oklahoma, number 4. DJ Lagway of Florida, number 5. Drew Aller of Penn State, number 6. Sam Levitt of Arizona State, number 7. Kevin Jennings from SMU, number 8. Josh Hoover from TCU, number 9. And Arch Manning of Texas, number 10.
Lagway is an interesting one to be that high, top 5. And he really gave Florida a ton of life. But that's high expectations now. Number 5. That's and with their schedule, that's going to be put to the test. And so I'm curious what he has for an encore. I'm actually curious to read more about it because Beck, like going into last year, Beck would have been probably pretty high on this list. I don't know if they did this last year.
He's number 12.
He's number 12
this year.
Sort of towards the top of Tier 2. I think with Beck, I want to know if he's going to be feeling any effects from the injury. It was his throwing arm, right? That got hurt. I mean, that would seem to be pretty important.
Yes.
Like they don't even mention it really on here, do they? Elbow injury, but nobody questions his arm talent or his ability, but I don't see, at least in this evaluation, that they feel like that's going to have any lasting effect. But I'd feel better once I saw him in action overcome this. One more thing about Iamaleava. This is an interesting one. They have on this, because I love how they do this at The Athletic. They have sort of the college profile. Here's what he's done. Here's the story. We know Nico's story. But then they have scouting take. So this is interesting to me because Nico's, once all of the what hit, and they're scrambling, they're not getting the money they thought they were going to get. Not as many teams are pandering for him as maybe they thought with the timing of it. Reportedly, he's taking a lot less money, or maybe let's just argue the same money that he was getting at Tennessee, and not a big pay raise, right? Is that fairly accurate?
I would say
if not
so,
less,
if I recall correctly.
So the spin was, well, this is the program that's going to get him to the NFL. He wants to go to the NFL, and it's about the fit. It's about protection. Remember, he had cracked his helmet a couple of times. He had taken some big shots. And so UCLA magically is going to be the place where he gets that. Now we'll find out. Scouting take. A tall, skinny athlete with quick feet and an even quicker release. This is Nico. He's a good deep ball thrower when he's set. I would agree with that. And he has enough arm talent to drive the ball down the middle into tight windows. He was really good in that particular area against Vanderbilt. He carved them up. Remember, Vanderbilt hit them with a big knockdown punch early, and Nico had to play well in that game for them to get back, but that was one of his better games. He's also inconsistent with his drops, however, and an average processor. I think that's being kind, right? That's probably his biggest flaw in terms of what Tennessee fans think of him. It's hard to tell if his successes in the veer and shoot offense, for which he's perfect, will translate into the NFL. Now, is that to imply that the veer and shoot offense is what UCLA is going to run?
I
don't
can't
know.
say I know much about UCLA football.
Well, it's going to be different, right? And this is what they've been selling from the Nico camp, a.k.a. his dad and whoever's advising his dad, that this will be a better fit for his pro prospects. So Nico in the Big Ten. Yes, UCLA is in the Big Ten.
Ugh.
Side note from Pat Forty in that big
scheduling
thing that he did. It was amazing. He got all these nuggets. But he noted in the Big Ten, when you jumped a couple of time zones, which you do a few times, especially when UCLA is involved, the road teams did very poorly in those games. So UCLA is going to be up for some challenges here with Nico. That's going to be fun to watch. I think we're going to watch more UCLA football than we normally do in this fall.
Wes in Clarksville says, is number 136 the new Mr. Irrelevant, LOL? Josh Johnson of Air Force, I believe in you.
We're going to check Josh throughout the season.
You better watch out. Devin Kargman of Kent State at 135, or Gavin Wimsatt of Jacksonville State at 134, or even Chase Jenkins of Rice at 133. Josh Johnson, nowhere to go but up. I believe in you, Josh Johnson.
He's going to dark mode.
Yes, he is. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Of course, we are on from 9 to 12 this week because Chase and Big Joe are live at SEC Media Days, and our coverage is sponsored by Brewhouse South. Experience Nashville's ultimate sports and brew hangout at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. I do want to touch on an interesting story that I read about the SEC in, of all places, the Wall Street Journal. I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting look at the SEC's place in the college football landscape, because there is a word used in this story that I don't think I've ever associated with the SEC. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. We will not enjoy the silence because silence doesn't make for good radio. If we just sat here and enjoyed the silence, dead air wouldn't be good. But I love that song from Depeche Mode. So thank you, David.
You're welcome.
So SEC Media Days concludes today. It's an interesting group of teams. Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and Texas A&M will wrap up SEC Media Days today. Chase and Big Joe will wrap up their coverage from SEC Media Days today, again from noon to 3. A good interview yesterday, Willie, with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey on the Chase and Big Joe show. So if you missed that, you can find it wherever you get your podcast. A really good interview yesterday from Chase and Joe with Greg Sankey. So I stumbled across this story in, of all places, the Wall Street Journal, with the headline, "The SEC confronts a new college football opponent. Panic. After back-to-back After back-to-back seasons without a national championship, the swaggering Southeastern Conference is feeling unusually uneasy about its place atop the sport." This was written by Will Demel, I believe that's how you pronounce it, of the Wall Street Journal, live from Atlanta. That's where the byline is. And here is part of that story. Quote,
so he's sensing panic in Atlanta?
Here is part of what he wrote. Quote, "But as this year's SEC Media Days got underway in Atlanta this week, the vibe has been a little different. After back-to-back seasons in which the once dominant conference has been shut out of the national title game and forced to watch someone else take home the trophy, the SEC's swaggering sense of pride has been replaced by something else. Something that felt more like unease or anxiety, or in some cases, good old-fashioned panic." A quote from Paul Feinbaum, "You don't play in the championship for 2 years and it feels like the end of the world. You have to be honest about it." So I thought this was interesting because the SEC will tell you it just means more to play in the SEC. You may have heard that once or twice before. And we know that the SEC has been the dominant conference in college football. As the story notes, let me rephrase that. The SEC, a combination of Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Florida, won the national championship 13 times in 17 seasons through 2022. But the Big Ten has won the national championship in each of the past 2 seasons. Ohio State this past season, Michigan the year before. In fact,
Michigan cheated, with the signals. They got the plays from the other teams. I'm just kidding.
Let's not open that Pandora's box right now. Not only has the SEC not won the national title the past 2 seasons, the SEC has not appeared in the national title game in each of the past 2 seasons. It was Ohio State versus Notre Dame and Michigan versus Washington. So here's my trivia question for you, Willie Donick. When was the last time the SEC went at least 3 consecutive years without winning the national championship in college football?
Ooh, I didn't. I'm obviously not cheating. This is very look-upable. I am going to say not since. I'm going to say the mid-90s, the run of Nebraska.
You're
Nebraska,
close.
Colorado, Georgia Tech was in there, early 90s.
By my quick math, it was 4 consecutive years between 1999 and 2002.
Okay.
Florida State in 1999, Oklahoma, who was not in the SEC at the time, in 2000.
Right. Josh Heupel, quarterback, by the way.
Miami in 2001, and Ohio
loaded
State
team
in 2002.
Upset Miami in a controversial game.
So it's been
Craig Krenzel at quarterback. That was the Maurice Claret, Jim Tressel year.
It's been more than 20 years since the SEC went at least 3 consecutive years without winning the national title. So, Willie, should the SEC feel at all uneasy about its place atop college football?
No. Now, let's forget about the 2 years in a row, because I think the key question out of this, the panic is, that's a clickbait kind of word. Nobody's panicking. It's the best conference in the country. The question, especially with all the playoff format talk and strength of schedule talk, is they chose to Texas and Oklahoma in. And the question was asked by me, why do you want them? You are now flooding and you're creating a situation where everybody's going to beat up on one another. And what happened last year, where you had 3 or 4 teams on the bubble, right? You had Ole Miss, South Carolina, surprisingly, went up on the bubble late in the year. They got into the discussion. Obviously, Alabama. So there's 3 right there. I think, until maybe when you go to 16, it's going to be different. But no matter how you slice it, the league is now, the more teams you have in there that are all really good and all have a lot of resources, you're going to have this a lot. You're not going to have the superpower at the top of the league every year. And so what happened last year, the superpower, Georgia, their quarterback got hurt. It's hard to win with your backup quarterback. I don't care how good your program is. When you lose your quarterback, it's hard to win. So those are the 2 things that happened. A, they didn't get as many people into the 12-team format as they thought they were going to. True?
Yes.
I would have thought for sure they were going to get another team in there. What'd they end up with? 2?
Off the top of my head.
They had Georgia, and who else got in?
Texas.
That's it, right? There was all that discussion of Alabama, Ole Miss. Ole Miss lost late. Alabama lost the extra game that they shouldn't have lost. Somewhere in there. I'm not taking anything away from they lost to Vanderbilt. There was still an argument that they should have gotten it.
Tennessee.
Right, so they got 3. I would have thought they were going to get 4.
Tennessee,
right?
Texas,
and Georgia. Yeah, sorry. My apologies, Tennessee. Because people are like, Willie, Tennessee, man. What are you shortchanging the Big Orange? I would have thought in a 12-team field you would reasonably get 4. And I think going forward, look, this may be the last year we have 12, and we got to recalibrate how many teams get in there. But the point is, when you have to win more games, the more teams you have in there is a big thing. And then your best team, Georgia, lost their quarterback. So there are circumstances. But I think the philosophical question for the league is, okay, you chose this. You got 16 teams now. You've got a ton of teams that are heavyweights. Are you eating each other up and decreasing the chances that you're going to end up with a team winning the national championship as often as historically? I think that's a question.
615-737-1025. My question to all of you, which Willie has immediately shut down, but has offered some good philosophical follow-ups. Should the SEC feel uneasy about its place atop college football, knowing that the Big Ten has won the past 2 national championships? The SEC has not appeared in the past 2 national championship games. And if they go another year without winning the national title, it'll be the first time in roughly 20-ish years, close to 25 years, since the SEC went 3 consecutive years without winning the national title. 615-737-1025. I want to get back into the story. There are some other interesting notes in it. Also, a report yesterday about the college football playoff format that I want to discuss as well. 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you right now not to miss out on some of Nashville's best deals. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals now, and you can get, or you can purchase, I should say, you can purchase half off gift cards for Mellow Mushroom, Red's Hot Chicken, Staley's Chicago Italian Dining, Single Tree Barbecue, 312 Pizza, Bad Axe Throwing, Barrio Burrito Bar, and many more. Oh, that's the good stuff.
Another really good album from start to finish. It's kind of underrated. Like the outfield doesn't have like 7 albums. Like, oh my gosh, the greatest hits of the outfield for a decade. It was a little bit of a short run for them, but Play Deep, which is a great name for an album.
Yes.
When your name is the outfield.
Indeed.
It's a great album, start to finish. Strong.
93.3 put me in the perfect mood this morning when right before our show went on the air, they played Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode and Your Love by the Outfield back to back. So I came in here in a fabulous mood. But let's get to
and you're not even a child of the 80s.
I am not.
Well,
I mean,
I'm coming back to my high school days.
technically I am.
As I was cassette tape in.
I was born in the 80s.
Okay.
In March of 1989, so I got in at the tail end. I snuck in at the end.
A lot of great memories from June of 89, yes. December of 89.
A lot of great memories from when I was an infant.
And the turn of the clock to the 90s. I spent my turn of the clock to the 90s, the new decade, in the Holiday Inn Vanderbilt.
Ah.
We had quite the night.
I'm sure you did.
Back in the day, the men's basketball team, the women's basketball team, and the swim team would stay in the They kicked everybody out of the dorm, so all 3 of those teams were practicing in season. So we had the run of the hotel, and we didn't burn the building down or anything. We did a really good job having our fun under control.
Great times. Or
Great
so
times.
you say now.
So we say now.
So we have a lot of reaction to this. The Wall Street Journal had a reporter at SEC Media Days, Will Demel. And he came back with this story with the headline quote, "The SEC confronts a new college football opponent. Panic after back-to-back seasons without a national championship. The swaggering Southeastern Conference is feeling unusually uneasy about its place atop the sport." So that was my question to all of you at 615-737-1025. Should the SEC feel uneasy about its place atop college football? One texter says, "I'm a Big Ten fan, and even I know that the SEC is still better than the Big Ten. But the Big Ten is doing everything it can recently to push the SEC. But if it continues to happen for 2 or 3 more years, they do have to say the Big Ten is better."
Oh, if it happens for 2 or 3 more years, it's a big if.
One texter says, "Big is right there with the SEC, and they bring in a significant amount more money than the SEC, which Greg Sankey is jealous of." Now, here was another part of this story, Willie. Beyond the conference's 2-year title drought, there have been other worrisome signs of weakness. Last November, quarterback Bryce Underwood, the #1 recruit in the 2025 class, reneged on a commitment to LSU and signed with Michigan instead. That came 1 year after wide receiver phenom Jeremiah Smith spurned Florida, Georgia, and Alabama to sign with Ohio State. Then shortly after Ohio State was crowned a national champion in February, the Buckeyes topped a new analysis as the most valuable program in all of college football.
Ohio State is a juggernaut and will continue to be for a long time. Michigan also is a potential juggernaut. What we want to see is the fallout from the Harbaugh leaving and the, if you want to call it a scandal or whatever, they got their national title. We see what that program is capable of and should be. But the advantage that those two teams, and I would probably throw USC as a kind of a sleeping giant. I'm curious how they work into this equation in the coming years, if they can get back to what they were doing. But obviously their formula changes, and that the travel that we talked about is going to be a hindrance to them. They're going to play some cold weather games. They're going to have some time zone switches that make it more challenging, I think, to just roll through a schedule. But the advantage for a national champion, if you're only going by who wins the national championship, and that's your only evaluation of a league, the Big Ten has the advantage for a team that's really on top. Let's take Ohio State right now. Because there are 18 teams in the league and not 16, you're not going to play all the powerhouses every year. And the league tends to be top-heavy. It's devoid of heavyweights, right? Who are the heavyweights in the Big Ten? Ohio State and Michigan. Penn State, kind of a heavyweight, but we know the rap on Penn State, right? That they're really, really good, but they haven't been great in a long, long time. Fair? Like really, really good. But
they
haven't broken through.
Right. They're always in the mix. but James Franklin has this thing about not winning big games, right?
That's the rap,
right.
whether fair or unfair.
But
So
they're in the conversation.
they're in the conversation, but I think and then USC, right, who's been in a down phase. Tell me the other heavyweights in the Big Ten.
Well, Indiana thought they were a
Right,
heavyweight.
but that Indiana, we know the history of Indiana. That was a great story in and
Correct.
of itself. Great story, and we'll see if they can sustain. But Indiana football has been an easy out for the Ohio States and the Michigans most of the decades at a time. But take that crop of teams, Northwestern, Indiana, even Iowa, who's solid and wins quite a few games every year. They're usually not in the national picture. You know, you've got your up years from Michigan State, but and they're rock solid. I don't know if I would call them a full heavyweight. Now, D-Mace might differ, but I think they're, year in and year out. Wisconsin, really, really solid. But I think the SEC is deeper, right? There's more teams that really throw ridiculous resources at programs. So my point would be, on a given year, Ohio State is going to have an easier path most years than an SEC team, because there are more programs that can knock you off on a Saturday, year in and year out in the SEC, which gets back to my question. With Texas and Oklahoma now in your mix, two more heavyweights, are you going to eat each other up and decrease your chances year in, year out, percentage-wise, of winning a national championship?
Gino on our text line, and it's a long text, so I will do my best. I will try to do it justice. Gino says, wait, let me see if I'm hearing you right. SEC homers who used to say the Pac-12 was weak because they would beat each other up, and they say the same thing about the Big 12. Now the SEC wants a pass because they beat each other up. Before it was the SEC won the chip regardless of how top-heavy it is, equals best conference. Big 10 wins 2 in a row, but now chips don't matter. SEC is better because of the depth, and they beat each other up. Same song, different tune from SEC homers.
I think the new tune is that now you have to win minimum 3 playoff games on top of getting there, instead of getting there and then having to win 2 playoff games. You got to win 3, sometimes 4.
Did we mention Oregon in the Big Ten conversation?
No, that's a heavyweight.
Right.
That's a legit heavyweight.
Thank you, unnamed texter.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
Oregon's legit. Most years in the mix. They have the resources. I look at all these things, right? Resources, consistent performances. How often are they in the mix? I still think you have a deeper list of teams in the SEC, especially with Texas and Oklahoma added to it.
Mike in Lebanon says, I've always cared more about the SEC championship than the national championship.
Really? Really?
Who's to say?
I mean, to each their own, but I don't hear that a lot.
One texter says, Nebraska could be just like Tennessee. Started being great, but they got to get their crap together.
I think it's that remains to be seen. Do we think that they could ever get back to what it was, quote, back in the day, 70s, 80s, mid 90s? I don't know. It's been a long, long time, right?
Where's Eric Crouch when you need him?
That's fair.
That's the only Nebraska player I could name off the top of my head.
Yeah. So I guess, and he would stretch into the early 2000s. He was a great player, but consistently, it's been hard for Nebraska for a couple of decades now to get into this mix.
615-737-1025. We will continue this conversation with our dear friend, Jonathan Hutton, who is at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. So we will link up with Hutton coming up next. We'll continue this conversation with him. I would love to get his perspective on the state of college football, the state of the SEC. Also, I want to know about all the hot goss going on at SEC Media Days, and Hutton's usually good for that. So we'll get to that next.
Is the Iamali drama moniker, is that swirling around? We'll have to ask.
We'll ask him. And
did you ask Chase and Big Joe to start getting that going?
I need to before they leave. Thank you for reminding me. 615-737-1025. This isn't just a concert, it's a cause. Trying Tix's Rock the Cradle helps give fragile newborns a stronger start and keeps moms close when it matters most. With Tim McGraw live on stage and your support behind every beat, Ascension St. Thomas is turning music into healing. Tickets are on sale now at rockthecradlenashville.org. The Mace Finn, Ganondonic, 1025, 1063, The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, soon to be joined live from SEC Media Days by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Chase and Big Joe also at SEC Media Days, and our coverage is sponsored by Brewhouse South. Experience Nashville's ultimate sports and brew hangout at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. As we await Jonathan Hutton, at the beginning of the show, Willie, we looked at the list of the 136 projected starting quarterbacks, I should say, ranked by The Athletic in college football. And you have received a text from friend of the show, Mitch Light, who in fact edited this ranking.
He did. And Mitch, who regularly comes on during football season, we hope we'll be able to do that again. Got to ask him, but I shouldn't take our friendship for granted, especially about all the work he's putting in here for this list. I said,
yes.
I said, Mitch, did you edit the list of 136 quarterbacks? That seems like a lot of data. And he said, yes, they did all the work, meaning the writers. I did the editing. He said, it's very, very tough to compare and rank league to league, right? You're comparing Air Force's quarterback to Georgia's quarterback and everything in between. Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, Boise State, San Jose State. Like, how do you do that? That's unbelievable. But I did say, have you gotten any feedback from the Johnson family? Can you remind people that didn't listen to the first hour? Somebody had to be 136.
Yes, the 136th ranked quarterback, right before we get to Jonathan Hutton, was Josh Johnson of Air Force.
Josh Johnson, I'm sure there's going to be a chip on his shoulder. And you said, watch out.
Number 135 and 134.
And those people have names?
Yeah, sorry. Devin Cargman from Kent State at 135.
He better watch out.
Gavin Wimsatt of Jacksonville State at 134.
They've got a poster of him in the Air Force locker room right now. So I did want to ask Mitch, did you need to feel the need to justify Josh Johnson at 136? And have you gotten any feedback from the Johnson family or the Air Force? He can verify no feedback from either Mrs. Johnson or any people from Air Force. They're going to use it as motivation. So we are going to check on Josh Johnson thoroughly during the season and see if he can move up the ranks. There's nowhere to go but up. He can be that guy.
If there are any fighter jets that fly over your house, Mitch, in the next couple of months.
A flyover?
Yes. Just keep that in mind. Let's bring in
a flyover with, remember sometimes the plane would have the sign that would fly over the football stadium? Josh Johnson is not 136. I can see that. It'll just be going a lot faster than usually those planes are.
Yes, let's bring
There used to be, this is a funny story.
Okay.
The 1 year, and Hutton will remember this, the first year of the Tennessee Oilers in Nashville, they played at Vanderbilt Stadium. Every home game, there was a guy that flew a prop plane over the stadium with a deja vu sign. Those not familiar with deja vu?
I am familiar.
You're familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that I have
family friendly. Hey, Mom, look at the plane. What's deja vu? But every game. Am I right, Hutton?
Willie, not only you're right, it was that Sunday I became a man.
Yes.
I have not
it's a strip club. Just in case
yes.
It was not as good as Ken's Gold Club, but it was right up there.
Yeah.
So Hutton,
interesting marketing strategy.
Hey, some new rich people in Nashville, Willie. You have to get after it.
That
by
true.
the way, Josh Johnson, no joke. Josh Johnson. I wonder if we're talking about the same quarterback. That is he's actually number one. He's not last. Josh Johnson has played for 14 different NFL franchises, the most in NFL history. He's a quarterback right now. Remember him?
Oh, I do remember him. And
a different Josh Johnson.
Has he found a way to get NCAA?
I guess it's different.
As he found a way to get eligibility in the NFL? If anybody can do it, it's that Josh Johnson, right?
No doubt. He played, let's see. Yeah, he was a 5th round pick. I'm looking it up right now. 5th round pick from San Diego, from 2004 to 2007. Last played in the league Let's see. The Baltimore Ravens in 2024. How about that?
Good for him.
And the XFL as well.
Very nice.
Get after it, Josh.
You go, Josh Johnson.
That's right.
So, Hutton, you are live at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. And
not anymore. I'm back in Nashville.
Okay.
Actually.
Well, you were at SEC Media Days.
I was. And
live
thanks for
in
accommodating
Atlanta.
because it was kind of crazy down there.
Of course. So, I love gossip. I'm not afraid to admit it. I need some hot goss from your time at SEC Media Days. So, what's the juiciest thing you heard over your few days in Atlanta at SEC Media Days?
Well, let's see. Everything from Georgia's not going to be at the top, and I kind of am leaning that. I'm not leaning like they're going to be at the bottom, but after all of their 10-win seasons, at some point they have to want a 9-win season. That's not the juiciest thing right now. Everything. See, here's the thing, Adam. It's not. I didn't hear a bunch of gossip. I heard a bunch of business talk. Like, and I talked to Commissioner Sankey about this. It's like this is a week about business. And as long as on Saturday in the fall, I feel like it feels to me like college football on game day, this week is a lot of fluff that I'm not going to think about on game day during those 4 hours. Now, can it stay that way? I think that's really the discussion that I was intrigued by, because you've got Kirby Smart, who's at the podium saying, I'm cool with 9 games. I understand the business of it in the SEC. I want the fans to be happy. They're spending a lot of money. But then you have other coaches that behind the scenes are saying, no, stay at 8, please. Stay at 8. That's the topic today, or that's going on in Atlanta. And then you have a bunch of teams that feel like they're right there, but who's on the hot seat, who's not. It's the same stuff, just times five times the millions, year after year. And whenever we actually kick off in the fall, the only difference is we're not going to really know the players' names on the back of the jersey because they move around so much. And how long before that catches up to college football? I don't know if most fans feel the same way I do. It still feels like college football if I'm at the stadium on Saturday. And I would say, especially in the big time atmospheres. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe you guys are shaking your head. I still think so far, I'm not thinking of as much about how much is that player getting paid whenever they catch the football.
I do want to ask you about a story we were discussing before you came on, written of all places, the Wall Street Journal. It was written by Will Demel, who was at SEC Media Days. The headline: the SEC confronts a new college football opponent. Panic. After back-to-back seasons without a national championship, the swaggering Southeastern Conference is feeling unusually uneasy about its place atop the sport. It's a really good read. It mentions the fact that the Big Ten has won the past 2 national championships. The Big Ten has poached some highly prized recruits from the SEC. Mm-hmm. And at the bottom of the story, there is a quote from Paul Feinbaum, and I want to get your opinion on this. Feinbaum says, quote, "I understand the narrative, but for now I think it's way premature. A 2-year sample is simply not enough. But if we're sitting here having a cup of coffee at the national championship game and the SEC isn't in it, that will be the moment. The angst will come." Do you agree with Feinbaum?
Well, that will be the angst for a year, and then everyone will pony up again. See, I think let's source this around the room a bit. It is, to me, the haves and the have-nots. It's been that way, but now it's really like dialed in on the national championship contenders and the millions upon the millions of, not the Rock fans, Adam, but the
yes.
The number of teams that are truly spending the type of money that we're all talking about on a national level here, and the top 1% of players. So I think the SEC is a bit more diluted at the top, and the Big Ten is more pinpoint accurate at the very top. I think we're seeing that in the Big Ten, just the top 4 or 5. You add Oregon to the mix. You've got some teams there. You've got USC, who's got high expectations, and Lincoln Riley, whatever you want to say there. Meanwhile, right now you've got Saban out of the SEC, and there's this clamoring for, okay, who's catching up with Georgia? Who's right there that's going to grab the next spot? I think that's sort of what the SEC is battling at the top. Meanwhile, you've got Ohio State that's putting together a roster year after year that's just churning over the top talent in the country, just on the field. So I think that's what we're seeing initially. And we're also seeing the head-to-head matchups a bit more, which I appreciate early in the season. So that's good to know too. And I also will say this: the expansion of the college football playoff and the fact that behind the scenes they are going to tweak. Greg Sankey's going to absolutely make this happen. They're going to tweak the way that the committee looks at strength of schedule, and that will take place moving forward, I believe, with how we view the SEC in the college football playoff. They're not going to have the automatic buys anymore. Penn State's not going to have the path. If roles were reversed, Tennessee would have had Penn State's spot in the college football playoff rankings last year in the bracket. That means Nico's probably still the quarterback because Tennessee pays him because they're in the semis. If you just look at the hypothetical, fill in your brackets now, please, scenarios. I think all that being said, Adam, I think it works out in the SEC's favor. Just look at what we've seen from the 14 playoff in the history of what the way the Southeastern Conference was represented. It can go a year, and Feinbaum can say a year equals panic. That's true because a loss every week equals panic during the week for SEC fans. Your mood for 7 days is determined what happens on Saturday. That because of that, the SEC is going to remain on top, and I mean they're running things behind the scenes with Tony Petitti. It's always going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. No one's mentioning the Big 12 or the ACC in that discussion.
I think you just hit on a really key point is the strength of schedule. Because my philosophical question to the article is, with Texas and Oklahoma, 2 more heavyweights added to a group of heavyweights, which I think is, no matter how you slice it, the SEC is a little deeper in heavyweights. And then you could argue the next tier is probably on a yearly basis better than the middle tier of the Big Ten.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's a little easier path for the top Big Ten teams to get into the playoff picture every year. So the strength of schedule is going to be huge. So my question is, what happened last year is they beat each other up, right? They only got the 3 teams in and not 4,
right?
Which we thought was almost a slam dunk with the 12-team field. So year in and year out, is this going to be a problem a lot of years, or is this is an anomaly because Carson Beck got hurt? For example, Alabama stumbled when they shouldn't have. They should have been in there. You mentioned the seeding. These things will work themselves out most years. So I'm certainly not panicking, but I think it's a fair question of beating each other up in a real deep league. That can lower your percentage chance of having the national championship.
No doubt, and I think what it comes down to is a couple of things. Look at what the teams we were debating last year for the final spots, right? Like we're talking SMU, Indiana was a part of that discussion too, just strength of schedule. If we're being fair to the discussion, we haven't talked a bunch about Indiana since then. And then there's Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee gets in there. They're playing at Ohio State, despite having a seed that's worthy of hosting are they going to host a game or are they not? So I think those debates matter. And then Willie, I think it's okay. Is it strength of schedule or is it conference win percentage? Like that, I think that if you're going into a future where we're going to have 16 teams in the playoff, what does that championship weekend look like? Are they going to position a weekend where Sankey has play-in factors, and the play-in factors for the conference would be automatic qualifiers, okay? The automatic qualifiers would then give him the opportunity to have the play-in that we've discussed. We have the 6 seeds. Teams 1 and 2 are automatically in. I say 6 seeds. You have the 4 automatic qualifiers. You're playing 3 through 6 and 4 versus 5, and then the winners move on. I mentioned that because if you have that, then the 10 seed in your conference has a chance to get the 6th seed in the final week of the season. You play your way into the college football playoff. And then hypothetically, if your 10 seed's getting in, you can make the argument that your 6th seed who lost potentially is also worthy of getting in. I think Sankey's also going to lean back on this. Okay, look at our history in the 14 playoff. And if you're worried about us getting 4 teams in, let's not have any. And there will be some years where we get many, more than that, just based on what we're going to be doing top to bottom of the conference. It's still dominant. It's just not going to be as I guess apparent when you have 16 teams and you have some other conferences who are worthy of getting teams in. That's the debate: is how many automatic qualifiers are they going to get? And same for the Big Ten, by the way. But see, the Big Ten with 4, I think it's relatively easy to kind of circle 6 programs, Willie, in the Big Ten that I think would just rotate. And maybe you get the 7th in there every now and then. I think in the SEC, because of that middle portion that you're talking about, I could honestly see like a Kentucky or a Vanderbilt being a 10 seed in the final week of the regular season and have a chance based on mathematics to get a 6th seed and play in championship weekend in Atlanta, hypothetical, or Nashville moving forward, for a chance to go to the college football playoff as an automatic qualifier. I think that is the circling point of strength of schedule and conference win percentage. That would be how you determine the seeds for that weekend, not the record against FCS or Big Ten or whatever, just the SEC conference win percentage. And you do that and you determine who's going to the automatic qualifiers, and then everybody else is up for strength of schedule. I think that's intriguing, and I think it makes sense just based on the type of football we're seeing on Saturdays.
Hutton, I want to ask you about something off topic. You and Chad had Christine Brennan on your program recently.
Yes.
I enjoyed that interview.
Me too.
And I am glad that she took the opportunity to speak to the two of you, and the fact that you probably have differing opinions on a lot of things.
She listened to the show, and she didn't. There were no labels there. She came on to promote a book, and she didn't care who she was promoting the book with. I appreciate that, because we're open to discussion instead of argument. I think that's where we come down on, Chad and I.
Yes, but I really enjoyed the discussion. And Ben Strauss, who writes about sports media for the Washington Post, he had a story last week with the headline, "In the battle to define Caitlin Clark, 2 new books make their case." So Christine Brennan, of course, writing a book about, or she wrote a book about Caitlin Clark. Howard Megdal, a longtime follower of women's basketball and the WNBA, also writing a book about, or also wrote a book, it's published, about Caitlin Clark. And I thought this was an interesting passage from the story from Ben Strauss in the Washington Post. He said, quote, "Overall, though, the books diverge. Where Brennan's book portrays a star dragging a league toward greater prominence almost against its will, Megdal sees a transformative figure who arrived after the work of generations of women was starting to bear fruit." So I'm curious for your opinion. Let me ask you the question posed in the headline. In the battle to define Caitlin Clark, who is winning that battle right now?
Well, Christine Brennan's winning the battle just based on ratings. But here's the thing. Caitlin Clark is admitting the latter. She said that there were the foundation was set by the women before her. And she's still being split in half with this discussion. That's what's fascinating to me is okay, here's the other just odd thing. Christine Brennan is covering a woman playing in the WNBA, writing a book about her for a season, following her around. And the end of the season, the WNBA Players Association tries to have her banned from covering the league.
Yes.
They sent out a statement specifically naming her and wanting her removed as a legitimate reporter covering a sport. And I'm thinking to myself, this is Christine Brennan from the Associated Press, and you're looking at the
pretty decorated writer,
USA
right
Today.
Yes.
And you want to be a legitimate professional league, and the players, the 144 as they refer to them, want her removed as a credentialed media member. Meanwhile, Greg Doyle is up there giving heart emojis to Caitlin Clark earlier in the season.
I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that.
Where's the statement on that? I mean, that's what's so just bizarre to me, is how they have been if Christine Brennan were covering any other player, this would not have been the response. That's what's weird. And it's not like Caitlin Clark is coming in saying, "Look at me, I'm the Queen of England. Everyone check out me and my corgis." It is, hey, I'm here to be the Steph Curry. I'm shooting threes. I'm really good. I'm the all-time leading scorer. And oh, by the way, the foundation was paid before me, and let's go. Let's build the audience. It's not like Caitlin Clark can talk a lot of trash on the court. A lot of players have done that. But the rallying cry behind, okay, now we have this attention. Let's get rid of Christine Brennan. Let's get back to, the columnists for, the locally owned newspaper down the street that's soon to be owned by Gannett. That it's not the same to me. It's a weird vibe, and because of that, Christine Brennan's got more of the headlines. I think it made the WNBA look worse than anything. Because, by the way, all Christine Brennan did was ask a question that would have been asked in random NFL, NBA, Major League, but any other professional league about an eye poke and whether or not it was intentional. That was the discussion of the week after that game. And because of that, it was attacking the league, and it was pro Caitlin Clark. It was very, very weird. And even Caitlin Clark was asked about it, and she said it wasn't intentional that same week. So it's, again, it's the response to it that is, I think, worthy of discussion more than it is it Caitlin Clark versus the WNBA? It's not. Caitlin Clark has not been against the WNBA. It's kind of been flip-flopped.
And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Christine Brennan and all that she has accomplished in her journalism career. The idea that a professional league would ask for a reporter's credential smacks of a league that's not ready for the spotlight. And
totally agree. It's a 5-page statement, by the way, that they released on her.
I do recall that. But I just find it interesting that Caitlin Clark, I'm trying to think of the right word here, she's sort of become an avatar for a lot of different people. And you can put your views on Caitlin Clark, and you can massage them in such a way that it will make sense to a large group of people. That's my...
Okay, let me jump in. Instead, okay, let's view it through this lens, because Chad and I have had this discussion. Instead of saying it's about the Trump versus the MAGA versus the anti-Trumpers, look at it from this view. Is it the Tebow kneel, the pose? Go back to 2007 with the touchdown celebration. There was a big split there too. Like there are instances of athletic figures that you can put into this box, Adam. And I'm very intrigued by why all of a sudden it's Caitlin Clark, because look, man, I mean, you mentioned her name and everybody has an opinion on it. It's like, what would we talk about at the bar today? It's not the WNBA. It's Caitlin Clark versus whoever, if she's on the TV. I'm very fascinated by this because it's a societal discussion that's fascinating.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow joining us on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Great stuff, Hutton. As always, we'll chat next week.
Hey, thank you again for the time adjustment. And hey, by the way, College Football Hall of Fame, very, very nice job hosting SEC Media Days. I like the layout, but Nashville's far superior.
I agree. Hey, Hut, one thing before we let you go. I'm trying to, I want to use this, and I'm obviously not in Atlanta.
Yeah.
The guy I'm intrigued with so much that I feel like I want to know as much as I can before we just see the guy play is obviously Aguilar from Tennessee.
Yeah,
what can you tell me about him? Like, there's not much from an outside, and I didn't watch him at Appalachian State, but what do you think? What do we think we're going to see?
Picking up on body language and just kind of the read between the lines with Heupel. I think Aguilar speaks his language. It's a cram session, but I didn't get the sense that Heupel doesn't look like he's lacked much sleep since Aguilar came in there. He's trying to pretend like there's a quarterback battle, by the way. But yeah, he didn't really. Even off the air.
So you're not buying that. You think he's clearly going to get the shot.
Oh yeah, I think you pay him $1 million, and
right.
I think,
and he's older. He should be better than the guys they've got.
And that's what I'm getting to. Heupel said the experience and being able to come in as a bit older, but also having played reps. Like having the experience on the field, not just being older. That plays a factor in how quickly he thinks he can pick things up. It's going to be a huge challenge to pick it up this fast, but. Does he speak the language of Josh Heupel? If he does, then it's going to be much easier than having to, like, the baby food aspect of it, where maybe you go with a Joe Milton over Hooker because it just doesn't look great in practice. Who knows what the practice is actually going to look like, but I don't get the sense that they view the abilities of Aguilar to be, significantly hindered behind that of what Nico provided. And that to me is the positive for Tennessee. I would be more concerned about the fact that they didn't have a quarterback or a wide receiver representing them at SEC Media Days. The positional factors there. That's really where it comes down to. What are the players like around him, and how do they replace what was a good run game?
Hutton, great stuff. We'll chat next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Always a pleasure with Jonathan Hutton. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, an update on a story in the NFL we discussed earlier this week. The first domino may have fallen yesterday. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan here. Earlier this week, we discussed how only 2 of the 32 players drafted in the second round in the NFL a couple of months ago had signed contracts. Now, the reason those 2 had signed is because those 2 players were given fully guaranteed contracts. The first 2 second-round draft picks to ever receive fully guaranteed contracts. Now we have a third second-round pick player who has signed. Alfred Collins, the 43rd overall selection of the San Francisco 49ers. He reached agreement, according to Adam Schefter, on a 4-year, $10.3 million deal that includes over $9 million guaranteed, and now is expected to trigger multiple second-round signings. Schefter writes, quote, until now, 30 of the 32 second-round picks remained without a deal. Collins will have 88% of his deal guaranteed, a huge jump over last year's number 43 overall pick. And by the way, last year's number 43 overall pick, that would have been Max Melton of the Arizona Cardinals. He had 78% of his contract guaranteed. So a jump from 78% to 88% in 1 year.
I think this is probably going to become the center of negotiations as they fill in is percentage of guaranteed money. And so I think what this is going to do is probably set a precedent for years going forward that when all of this shakes out, the going rate for your second round pick is going to include a higher percentage of guaranteed money. That's a victory for draft picks. Fair?
I would say so. So 88% of Alfred Collins's contract is guaranteed. He was the 11th pick in the second round. Femi Oladejo of the Tennessee Titans was the 20th pick of the second round. So keep that number in mind. By the way, last season, the 20th pick of the second round, Colts receiver A.D. Mitchell, received 65.2% of his contract fully guaranteed. So one would imagine that Oladejo is going to receive a greater percentage of guaranteed money than A.D. Mitchell did 1 year ago. But the 11th pick of the second round just signed with an 88% guarantee. Oladejo is the 20th player in the second round. So there's going to be a cascading effect from 11 down to 20, I imagine.
And I think it becomes a question, too, as we get ready for the start of camp. Or is it worth arguing over 5% more guaranteed money? Let's just say that's the thing that you're trying to argue for. You're slotting this guy, that guy. Is that worth missing a couple practices over? Or do you bet on yourself and say, look, it's not that big of a deal. I'm young, I'm healthy. Either way, if I play well in this league, I'm going to do okay, whether I get 65% guaranteed money or 75% guaranteed money.
So I've referenced the Wall Street
and
Journal.
Then the agent would turn around saying, but that's $1.7532 million in your pocket. Like it's worth it.
So
that's the give and take.
I've referenced the Wall Street Journal a couple of times today. The Wall Street Journal wrote a story about this phenomenon earlier this week before Alfred Collins signed. I thought this was interesting. Quote, part of what makes the issue so odd is that the money at stake isn't enormous, or at least in a sport where each team's salary cap stands at $279.2 million this season. The rookie scale called for Jaden Higgins, who was the first player to sign, the wide receiver who received the guaranteed contract. The rookie scale called for Higgins to make $11.7 million over 4 seasons. And it isn't unusual for second rounders, especially early ones, to receive the first 3 years guaranteed with a partial guarantee in the final one. That means the difference could just be a few $100,000 of unguaranteed money. Yet it's consequential for 2 reasons. First, that is cash that a good chunk of players never wind up seeing. From 2011 to 2021, 87 of 349, which is roughly 25%, 87 of 349 second-round picks were cut prior to the end of their 4th season.
Right. This is I didn't know that number, but that makes perfect sense. And any Titans fan who's been a Titans fan for a while can read off a very sad list of failed second-round picks. From Kevin Dodd to, what was the guy's name? Chris Henry, I think was his name, running back, who everybody thought was good.
Well, there was Justin Hunter.
Justin Hunter. We can. There's a long list of guys who were not in the plans by year 3 or 4. Definitely by year 4.
So again, a few $100,000 may make a difference. Keeping in mind that roughly a quarter of second-round picks.
Right. And so it's I see both sides of the argument. You have an opportunity. The agent sees an opportunity to get his client a lot more money in his pocket, guaranteed. But your mentality as a player has to be that this is going to work itself out if you're any good, which is why you should also have a second layer of fallback. And like when I'm in college, actually go to class and pay attention and prepare yourself for life after football.
Yes.
And not just have a singular focus of, I'm going to play in the NFL. Well, if you're a second-round pick, yes, you're going to play in the NFL. We don't know how long.
I am curious to see if this signing by the 49ers is what breaks the dam of the second-round picks who are unsigned, including Femi Oladejo, and the Titans report to training camp in 5 days. So it will be curious to see if Oladejo signs before Tuesday and how much guaranteed money in terms of the percentage of his contract is guaranteed that he gets. But another signing, so now 3 second-round picks have signed contracts. 29 to go, but 3 have signed. So an interesting update there. 615-737-1025. One texter quickly said, would A.J. Brown count as a failed second-round pick for the Titans?
What do you think?
Well,
I didn't say every single second-round pick has never made it for the Titans. I don't know what the I don't know what the purpose of that text is.
I think the running back that you were talking about earlier was Bishop Sankey.
Oh,
well,
yes.
no, there's another one.
Oh, there was another one?
Yeah.
Oh, so it
well,
was.
there's a guy named Chris Henry, but Bishop Sankey's another great example of, and I think the year that Bishop Sankey was picked, I don't think they had a first-round pick. Is that right?
I remember about it was that
but
Bishop,
he was bad.
Bishop
It was
Sankey.
really bad.
Bishop Sankey was the first running back taken in his draft.
That might be what I'm thinking. But
It
yeah,
took until near the top of the second round.
and then somebody will take, well, what about Derrick Henry? He was a second round pick. Yes, I know. Sometimes the second round pick ends up being very special, but there's quite often, and they just did the numbers, right? What was the number again?
Roughly 25%.
25% are cut before the end of the first contract.
Yes. Between 2011 and 2021.
And if you got it all guaranteed, you would be on the hook for that money if you're the team. Even if that guy has been cut for 2 years, you still have to pay the guy.
615-737-1025. Speaking of contracts, there is a member of the Nashville Predators who is still without a contract. And I seem to think that a lot of you are worried about it. You don't need to be worried about it. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. The Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix is coming to the Nashville Superspeedway Labor Day weekend, and 1025 The Game has your chance to win VIP tickets to the IndyCar race. Text in the keyword RACE, R-A-C-E, now to 615-737-1025 to be entered to win a pair of VIP tickets. For more information on the event, visit MusicCityGP.com. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. The Chicago Bears must have been listening to our previous segment because, according to Ian Rappaport, the Bears and second-round defensive tackle Shamar Turner have agreed to terms on his 4-year rookie contract as the logjam slowly begins to open up. Shamar Turner was the 30th selection of the second round. Femi Oladejo was the 20th. No word on what the percentage of guaranteed money is on Shamar Turner's contract, at least not yet. I will be curious to see
but I
that
think
figure.
it's clear that by the end of the day and tomorrow, I think you're going to start seeing more second-round picks get signed.
So we'll keep that in mind. But there you go. The logjam appears to be opening quite a bit. So speaking of contracts
And second-round picks.
and there you go. Look at that. Look at that segue there. Speaking of second-round picks who need contracts, Luke Evangelista. Now, I've seen some Predators fans worried that pretty boy Vincenzo does not have a new contract with the Nashville Predators. You need not worry, Predators fans. Luke Evangelista is a restricted free agent. He does not have arbitration rights. He really has zero leverage. He will be signed at some point. So do not worry. Your favorite 20-something Predators winger will be on the team next season. But it has led to some conversations among Predators fans about what sort of contract we should expect Luke Evangelista to sign with the Predators. Luke Evangelista is coming off of a disappointing season. He had 10 goals and 32 points in 68 games. The season before, he had 16 goals and 39 points in 80 games. AFP Analytics, which is a service I use quite a bit around this time, their projection for Luke Evangelista's contract, Willie, is a 2-year deal with a cap hit of around $2.5 million. So a 2-year contract, total value, roughly $5 million.
And what's this site again called?
AFP Analytics.
Okay.
Now, AFP Analytics, they do a great job. For example, AFP Analytics projected that Nick Perbix would sign a 2-year contract with a $2.6 million cap hit. He got a 2-year contract with a $2.75 million cap hit. So they were well within range. They do a really good job. So AFP Analytics projects a 2-year contract with a cap hit of roughly $2.5 million. But Willie, we have been sort of going over some recent players who fit Evangelista's profile, who the Predators could use or Evangelista's representation could use as a comparison for a potential deal. And there is a wide range of choices.
There are a wide range of choices, but I think this comes down to the leverage that Evangelista has, which is not very much. He can't be signed to an offer sheet, right? He's not eligible for that.
I think he is.
He is?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you had to be. Do you have to be arbitration eligible to get an offer sheet or no? Is it any restricted free agent? Let's say he is.
Okay.
Let's say, for example, that let's just say for argument's sake.
I am fairly confident that he is eligible for
but
an offer sheet.
I don't think that's going to come down the pike.
I don't either.
He had 32 points this past year. Most people, I think, would say, in a nutshell, it wasn't a good year for him. However, he had 13 points in his last 14 games, so the numbers ended up looking not that far off than the year before. And for contract negotiation purposes, I think that's relevant, don't you think? Because one of the guys we're going to talk about is a guy that just signed with the Sabres named Jack Quinn. And if you look at Jack Quinn's production and Luke Evangelista's production, it's pretty similar, right? And I think you'd say, well, Jack Quinn, man, he's a high first-round pick. He's got a lot of potential. He's going to be really good. And you might also say, well, hey, Evangelista didn't play well during the season when they needed him to, and he padded the stats late. Well, couldn't you say that anybody playing for the Sabres the last couple of years has played a lot of games that were fairly insignificant? They were out of the race for most of the time. So I don't know how Quinn did, in the arch of the ebbs and flows of the season. So I think when you're negotiating a contract, I do think these numbers the fact that he ended up, Evangelista did, with 32 points. He only had 7 less points than the year before, where people were really excited about his year. And he played 12 less games. He played only 68 games last year because he had a very significant injury, a high ankle sprain that shelved him for weeks, but also he played through down, for large parts of it when he came back. He wasn't 100%. So I think his camp is, he also had not a lot of puck luck, right? His shooting percentage was only 7.5%, which is low. And that was really the theme of the entire year for the Predators. Nobody shot well. Nobody had a lot of puck luck. And he was a victim of everybody not shooting well. So I think there are things that you can look at and say, if you're from Evangelista's camp, look, he's still a guy that deserves a pretty big raise here. And the Predators, I think, are going to give him a raise. But this coming year for him is absolutely critical. Regardless of what he signs for, this is the year that he defines where he fits in the big picture here. Is he going to be in sort of the Phil Tomasino, Juuso Parssinen direction of thought he was going to be something good, but not quite good enough to really move the needle, so he becomes replaceable? And let's now turn our attention to the next crop of prospects. Or can he take the opportunity to make a jump to where he could be a bargain as a fringe top 6, definite top 9 source of secondary scoring? You used a really good comp for him from Predators history in Craig Smith. Tell me where you were going with that, because he's a different type of player, but I think it's a good comp, 2nd-round pick.
Whenever I discuss Luke Evangelista, and I think, what is his ceiling as an NHL player? Perhaps I'm not as high on Evangelista as some of you. I think he can be an effective player. But the one player in Predators history I tend to land on is Craig Smith. Now, say what you will about Craig Smith. Evangelista and Smith approached the game differently. But there was a period of time when Craig Smith, you knew you were getting at least 20 goals a season out of Craig Smith. And I think that if Evangelista became a player who you could count on to score at least 20 goals every season, I think he can be a valuable member of your team.
And even if it was more like 15, 16 goals and maybe more assists,
right?
Because Evangelista is more of a playmaker than a shooter. I think Craig Smith was more of a straight line shooter, not as much of a passer. But at the end of the day, we're talking about that second wave of, say, 45 to 55 points. Fair? In that neighborhood?
I'm looking at Craig Smith's game log between the 2013-14 season and the 2019-20 season, which was his final season with the Predators. He averaged 21.7 goals per 82 games.
Right. How many points?
42.4.
Right. So he wasn't really an assist guy. Evangelista had he's a guy that I think will have more assists than Smith and a few less goals.
But my point is that if Evangelista could become a 20-goal, 35 to 40-point guy on a consistent basis,
it's worth having.
There is value in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be the big boy forward that all Predators fans want. I don't see
He's
that.
Not that guy.
I don't see that for Luke Evangelista, but there is value in having a Craig Smith type who won't wow you very often, but will end up at the end of the season. You'll look at his game log and go, wait a minute, he scored 20 goals? There is value in that.
Okay, so now let's get to the challenge. He's unsigned. He's a restricted free agent. He's coming off his entry-level deal, so he was making basically the league minimum, right? Less than $1 million.
Yes.
So if you doubled his salary, then we're talking about maybe 1.5, 1.6. And I think Barry Trotz might say, hey, man, I'm doubling your salary. You didn't have a great year last year. And we're not sure you've got to earn being a part of the future. So just a 1 year, $1.6 million, I could argue is not the worst thing. But I think if you look at some comps, right, he probably is going to argue he should get more, quite a bit more.
And we will do that coming up next. We will share some of those comps with you at 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also, coming up in the next hour. I'm excited about this, Willie. Our old friend Elijah Campbell. You all may remember Elijah Campbell. He used to work here at 1025. He was your producer at one point. No?
Oh, yes.
Elijah
Oh, yes.
Campbell. He now co-hosts the early game on 1075 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. He is live at SEC Media Days, and he's going to hop on with us at 11:20 to talk SEC Media Days and probably South Carolina football because that's the team he covers. And I look forward to catching up with Elijah, but we will continue the conversation on Luke Evangelista coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Friday, 1:45, we do our Take It to the Bank. And with SEC Media Days coming up or going on right now, that means football's coming up, and we're going to get back into a brand new season of keeping score with our picks for Take It to the Bank. Meanwhile, always keeping score for you, the F&M Bank crew all across our listening area, 20 locations from Clarksville to the western part of the state to up north in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and then right in our listening area in the bread and butter of the Nashville area, West End Avenue, right near Vanderbilt's campus, Murfreesboro, Mount Juliet, Springfield, all of those places. They want to be right in the middle of your community. They want to make your banking needs a lot easier. They've got tools to help you. You just find the nearest locations. Just go to myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com and find that nearest location. We take it to the bank every Friday at 1:45, thanks to our friends at F&M Bank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whenever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan here with you. Scott from Shelbyville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, my heart is so full talking hockey, even though you were all going to put it on the shelf for the summer. My day is made. Well, we have a unique opportunity this week. Willie and I are on earlier. Derek's been out. He will be back today with Jake Lyman from 3 to 6, filling in for Jared. So you have two hockey lovers, two hockey nerds here. Good opportunity to sneak in some hockey talk before Titans training camp starts next week.
Right. Because we know that this is really one of the last pieces of business, barring a big trade. And that I think that's the other storyline to watch. Is with the trade of Colton Sissons, there's a hole in the center position at a position that already was thin. Now it's even thinner. So we feel like there's a move coming there. And then the other guy that they've got to sign is Luke Evangelista. Once we get into August and you get those things done, the Predators talk is going to be at a minimum until mid-September when they open camp, right? So they're kind of they're going to fade off, but this is like the unfinished business of the summer that is significant.
Yes. So Luke Evangelista, a restricted free agent, still needs a new contract. Do not worry, Predators fans, especially female Predators fans who love Luke Evangelista, pretty boy Vincenzo.
We got to call it like it is.
With his big hair and his Gucci belt. He will sign a contract. He will be a member of the Nashville Predators next season, barring something completely unforeseen. But it is interesting to attempt to figure out what that contract is going to look like. So again, AFP Analytics, a site that I rely on heavily at this time of year, projects that Luke Evangelista will sign a 2-year contract with a cap hit of roughly $2.5 million per season. So total value around $5 million. On paper, I would say that is fair value for Luke Evangelista.
2.5?
2.5, based on what we've seen so far in his career.
And I think the negotiation will start lower because it wasn't a great second year. And he only had 32 points. And as we said, those numbers are buoyed by a good surge of games late in the year, which is not insignificant, but at the same time, it was kind of after the horse was out of the barn. You would have loved to have seen better production in the meat of the season when they were still fighting to get some traction going. That being said, the numbers are the numbers, and you introduced a comp to me that I had not thought of that is going to probably give you a little more fuel for the Evangelista camp trying to get something higher than the 2.5, because I think something around 1.8, 1.9 for 2 years is sensible. And that's about a 250% raise if you got to like 1.9.
So here's what I did. I looked at players who have a lot of the same characteristics as Luke Evangelista, early 20s, play on the wing, restricted free agent. I looked at deals that have been signed over the past 6 weeks, since June 1st. I don't know why I specifically picked that date, but it gave me more choices. And a player, as I was scrolling down the list, a player who popped out to me is Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn plays for the Buffalo Sabres. He was the 8th overall pick in the 2020 NHL draft. He's played parts of 4 seasons, one of which was shortened by injury. But his 3 full NHL seasons, he had 14 goals and 37 points in 75 games in 2022-23. In his injury-shortened season, he had 9 goals and 19 points in 27 games. So still an impressive production rate in a short amount of time. And last season had a career-high 39 points, 15 goals, 24 assists in 74 games. Jack Quinn, last month, signed a 2-year contract with a $3.375 million cap hit. Now, when you look at the production of Quinn in his career versus Evangelista in his career, pretty similar. Quinn has played 178 NHL games. Evangelista has played 172. Quinn has scored 39 goals. Evangelista has scored 33. Quinn has 97 points. Evangelista has 86. So that's just the bare minimum, looking at some comparisons. You can dig even deeper. But just on the surface, similar production over the course of their young careers. So if I'm the Predators, or excuse me, if I am Luke Evangelista's agent, I am looking at a player like Jack Quinn and saying, similar production, he's making nearly $4 million per year on his next contract. So why shouldn't Luke be making nearly $4 million
He's
per
making
season?
nearly $4 million?
2 years with a cap hit of 3.375.
Right, so 3.37.
Okay, sorry. I saw this. I maybe a little dyslexic there. I swapped the 7 and the 3.
Right.
So 3.375.
3.3. Because
Excuse me.
I think when we get into that, I think that's going to be a key, because I do think that's going to be a comp. 3.3. To me, that would be the high end, right? I don't think Evangelista is getting any more than Quinn. Fair?
Fair.
In fact, his production is a little bit less, and so $3 million to me is close to the ceiling. And some people, I think, and I think myself included, would say that's a little rich for what Evangelista has done. $3 million a year. But remember,
The cap is going up.
the cap is going up. $3 million now is not what $3 million was 2 or 3 years ago, let alone 5 or 6 years ago. So what do you do? Can this be? To me, this might linger for a while. What they do, and even the going rate of a 2-year deal wouldn't be a slam dunk, would it? Some years, Luke Evangelista could say, "Give me 1 year and bet on myself," or the Predators might say, "Look, Luke, this is a big year for you. We got a lot of people coming up the pipeline. We have a lot of players going into the last year of their contracts. And so we're going to offer you a 1-year deal." I can see either side playing it that way. So I don't know if it's a slam dunk, but I do think the going rate for players of his ilk, the sensible thing might be 2 years. But 2 years, if I'm Barry Trotz, is going to lower the per year, because I'm guaranteeing you 2 years and not 1. Because I do think Evangelista could go, his career could go south, but his career also could go north. I think the Predators would be smart to go 2 years, but I think if you can get him for under 2.5, I think that would be the compromise for me, because he's going to have a huge opportunity. They need for players like Luke Evangelista to seize jobs, a la Craig Smith, right? Any good team has to have some homegrown guys that are giving you production. And Evangelista can be a 40 to 50 point consistent scorer, I think, year in and year out, if he's right.
One texter says, Evangelista is not the answer. Sign him great. Sign him cheap. Great. Lose him to another team. Great. Just do not continue to overpay for underperforming players. Now, this is different than signing Steven Stamkos or Jonathan Marchessault or someone like that. Luke Evangelista is a younger player. The contract is going to be short term. It's going to be a prove it type of deal. We'll give you a raise. We'll give it to you over 2 years. You show us that you're worth more. You show us that you are worth a long-term investment. So,
and he still will be restricted at the end of a 2-year deal.
He should be, yes. So I don't see it in the same way the texter does. Like, I don't think, even if you overpay Luke Evangelista, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what you're paying some of your other players. So again, the projection is around the $2.5 million cap hit. April in Portland says, I wouldn't pay him over $2 million per year.
I think most Predator fans would probably fall closer to that based on the recency bias of his struggles last year.
But again, it depends on what kind of player you think Luke Evangelista can be. As I've said, I think his ceiling in the NHL, again, a different player, but in terms of production, I think his ceiling is Craig Smith. Craig Smith was a productive member of this team for a long time. Since he left the Predators, he's bounced around quite a bit. It's actually quite impressive. He went to Boston, then he was traded to Washington, then he was in Dallas for a season. Last season, he started in Chicago and was then traded to Detroit. So Craig Smith Still going strong, I guess, at age 35. He'll be 36 in September. Which
Right,
is,
but since the Predators have let him go to free agency,
he hasn't been the same
he has
player.
right. I think they did they made the move at the right time. But when they signed him to the second contract, I don't know if there was a third contract in there, but they got exactly what they were hoping
It wasn't
to get.
because he went to free agency. So
Right.
they signed him to, I believe, a 5-year contract out of arbitration. He
Okay.
played out that contract.
So after his entry level,
yes,
it was a 5-year deal.
or there
Or
may
was
have
there
been
maybe
there may
a
have,
small one in between.
I'll have to take a look. But Craig Smith, to me,
I do feel like there was arbitration in there.
there was. So he played on a 2-year deal with a $2 million cap hit from 2013 to 2015. Then had a 5-year contract with a $4.25 million cap hit.
Right. So that was a really good run. David Poyle finding him in the second round and getting the production he got for that number was really, really solid. Now, remember, $2 million a year back then, $2 million a year now, not comparable. But you see what I'm saying? It's a second level contract. You're not breaking your bank signing him. And even if they pay a little bit more for Evangelista in today's rising salary cap, where you're still trying to recalibrate what everybody's going to make, they have plenty of room to give him a few extra bucks. That's why I think it's going to be a unique situation. Because last summer, with a lot of these guys, it was like, hey, look, this is all we got left. We just signed these 3 big free agents, and we don't have much money left under the salary cap. You got to take what we're offering. And the player had to sort of take it or leave it. Now, you can't really use that because they've got enough cap space to give him an extra $500,000 or an extra $2 million over 2 years, right? If they wanted to.
But my point about Craig Smith is, over a 6-year period between 2013 and 2019, he scored 24 goals, 23 goals, 21 goals. He had a down year. 1 year he had 12 goals, but then he bounced back to 25 goals and then 21 goals. So 5 out of 6 years in his mid to late 20s, he scored 20 goals every season. And or 5 out of 6 seasons in that case, if Luke Evangelista can become what Craig Smith was, again, different player. I'm just looking at the production. If Luke Evangelista becomes whatever happens during the course of the season, by the end of it, if he stays healthy, he's going to end up with 20 goals. That is valuable. Again, he's not the game-changing winger that Predators fans desperately want and crave, but there is value in having a second or third line winger who you can count on to score at least 20 goals. And that's what I think Evangelista's
I don't think
ceiling
he is an at least 20 goals, but I do think he is a 15 to 20 goal and more assists than Craig Smith, which is, at the end of the day, it's about the same point production. But here's the key. It's at that price tag, right? You're not overpaying for those numbers. And if anything, because you control the player who's younger, you underpay, which gives you more cap space to go get the guys in free agency or in trade that you can pay big, or you can afford the big name players that you want to sign long term. Your Roman Yossi's, presumably the next wave of guys that you have. You got to hope that you have those guys. But those players are valuable. The Evangelistas, the Craig Smiths, the guys through the years. Victor Arvidsson was one of these guys for a long time, right? Who they got locked up at a younger age, and he overproduced based on what they were paying him for a while, right? I'm looking at some other guys that David Poyle had success with. Calle Yarncroke would be another one, right? You need guys like this who don't break the bank, who give you steady production over a good while. True?
Yes. I'm looking back at Calle Yarncroke's game log. He was a consistent 30-point player. 30 points, 31 points, 35 points, 26 points, 34 points.
Right. And he was valuable in that he could play center, could play wing.
He played on every line. Every position on every line.
And
Evangelista is not going to do that
guy.
Yes.
He's not that guy. But I think in a general sense, your second wave guys who don't cost you a lot but help you win, you need those guys. And with the prospect pool they have, quite honestly, I think there's going to be more of those guys than your high-end studs. But if you have several low-cost, steady players, then you have the resources to go get the big guns, right, when they become available.
So let's end this here. What would be the contract you would be most comfortable giving Luke Evangelista right now?
The most?
The most that you would be comfortable giving him right now.
I think the most would be right at $3 million.
Per season or overall? Like 2 years, $3 million?
You said the most. 2 years times 3 would be
Okay.
the highest I would go.
So a $3 million cap hit over
Yeah.
2 seasons.
2 times 3. And that would, and I don't think they would go that high.
No.
Um,
I'm going to go with what AFP Analytics says. I think 2.5. I think 2.5 is my
and
ceiling.
I think the sweet spot to me, because remember, 1.9, if my math is correct, or the 1.9 would be a 250% raise on what he's made, right? But you got to give him credit for what he's done the last 2 years. He's been a good player, as disappointing as last year was. And his career could go different ways. I think the sweet spot would be about 2.2. Still a really substantial raise, but also if he does hit another level, then he's a really good buy for 2.2. 2 times 2.2.
One texter says $1.5 million per year for 2 years. Again, I think that would be reasonable as well.
It would be reasonable, but
I'm not
his
sure he's going to
comps
take
with
that.
with the way the salary cap is going up. I think we're going to have to. I think Barry Trotz is going to have to look and say some inflation here is going to equal more dollars. I think 1.5 would have been dead on in the old cap that wasn't going anywhere. Remember, we got used to looking at a cap that wasn't rising.
Right.
Now it's gone up, and it's going to keep going up.
Yes. So we will keep you posted on Luke Evangelista again. Don't worry, Predators fans, especially those of you who have Tiger Beat posters of Luke Evangelista on your wall. Do they still make Tiger Beat magazines?
I don't know. Do they have magazines?
They do have magazines.
It's not that many.
They still have magazines. So that is true. But don't worry, Predators fans. I think it's going to be
does Luke's fan base read magazines?
No. They're all on TikTok.
Yeah.
They don't
That's
read,
what
they don't read
getting
magazines. I still love a good magazine. 615-737-1025. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Coming up next, our old friend Elijah Campbell, who used to work here at 1025 The Game, a former producer of Willie Donick's here at 1025 The Game. He is now the co-host of The Early Game on 1075 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. He is live at SEC Media Days. Elijah will join us coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game.
All right, football season coming up, the big fall, and maybe you've got the vision that you want to build the ultimate place in your house for TV viewing, game viewing. Maybe it's an outdoor patio where you want to get the grill outside and the big screen TV. Maybe it's the basement that you've been envisioning making into the great hangout to watch games where you can watch multiple games. Maybe you got a pool table in mind, a hangout, the little bar downstairs, whatever it might be, and you need the funds. How are you going to fund it? Well, home improvement and upgrading the value of your home, that's the specialty of Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan Program. They can get you cash out of your home's equity to fund a project like this. You can get as much as $300,000, depending on how much equity you have. It's yours. So they can tell you how much you have available. You can get it approved in under 24 hours, and then that vision is going to become a reality. It's going to add value to your home, and you're going to love it every night when it's time to chill out and watch the big games you want to watch. Your home equity is yours. Get cash out to make that dream happen. Call Loan Pronto for a free instant home appraisal. See how much cash you can qualify for today. Loan Pronto is A+ rated by the BBB, 2,500 5-star Google reviews. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie, Donick, Adam, Vingan here with you. By the way, Byron on our text line says, the food line by our house has a pretty massive magazine selection, and about a third of them are literally Taylor Swift magazines. So magazines still do exist, Willie Donick.
That warms my heart. I have to say, I don't read as many as I used to.
I love a good periodical. I'm a big periodical guy.
Yeah.
So, Chase and Big Joe are at SEC Media Days. It wraps up today. Our coverage is sponsored by Brewhouse South. Experience Nashville's ultimate sports and brew hangout at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. And we are pleased to be joined by an old friend. Some of you may remember Elijah Campbell, a former member of our family here at 1025 The Game. He is now the co-host of The Early Game on 1075 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. He is live at SEC Media Days, and he joins us now. Hi, Elijah. How are you, buddy?
Oh, hey, guys. It's Gameception here right now.
Absolutely.
It's so good to be back. It's good to hear your all voices. I popped in at the end of that last segment. I was like, I want to listen in for a little bit. Hear how you guys are doing.
You look like a grown-ass man now. You've got a full beard.
Yeah. The hair's still long too. I mean, you're looking right now. I got it up in a bun. I have, doing mornings.
Now he's got a man bun, everybody.
It's hit or miss if I want to completely shower and wash my hair in the morning. And this morning I just wasn't feeling it. I was just beat. So I'm like, no, it's a hair up day. Putting the hat on, but the beard is in full. I really couldn't grow this bad boy until like 2 or 3 years ago. But it's I'm 30 now, so now I have to have the grown ass man look.
Time flies, my friend. So, as we said, you are now the co-host of the morning show in Columbia, South Carolina. So give us the pulse of the South Carolina fan base. How are the Gamecocks looking as we approach football season?
Oh, Adam, the buzz from last summer to this summer, they're completely different worlds, right? Like last year in Dallas at Media Days, we're talking about this team that's coming off of a 5-7 season, essentially wasting the best year or the best quarterback the program's ever had in Spencer Rattler. And it was pretty dire. I got so many questions last year at Media Days as to whether or not Shane Beamer was on the hot seat. And now fast forward a year later, Lenora Sellers has like the best 6 weeks to end the season of any quarterback in college football. They became the hottest team in college football. They have that dramatic win at Clemson, and they were on the doorstep of the college football playoff. Just short of it, but like the buzz around town and the excitement for this team it's pretty fun. There's a buzz in the town about the Gamecocks this year. Still a little bit of, hey, we're still South Carolina. We've seen the worst case scenarios for teams that we're really excited about happen. There's still a little bit of pessimism, but for the most part, guys, it's been football season. Let's just say the last couple months, considering how bad the baseball team was. I think people usually in South Carolina, the spring is all baseball all the time. And we couldn't talk enough football this past spring.
Elijah, what did you know about Lenora Sellers before last year?
Before last year, so Lenora Sellers at South Florence High School, which is maybe an hour up the road, depending how fast you drive. Also the home of the only Buc-ee's in South Carolina. But at South Florence High School, he was a legend. He was one of those guys that he's bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else. And if you watch his high school tape, it's cartoonish. And you almost wonder, why wasn't he more highly touted as a recruit? I mean, he was a 2-3-star recruit coming out of high school. He's originally committed to go play at Syracuse. And really, he's been really open with, the decision to, decommit from Syracuse and go to South Carolina was incredibly difficult, despite getting an opportunity to stay home. So there was a lot of intrigue around him as to whether or not like everything that he did in high school translates to the SEC level. And it took a little bit last year, guys. It was a disaster that first week. They played Old Dominion. They only won by 4. I think he was about 9 for 14, if I remember correctly, but he only threw for about 114 yards. And after that week, it was, oh boy, we don't have a quarterback. This is an issue. And then everything happens after that. Now he's talked about as a top 5 pick in next year's NFL draft, maybe number 1. And it's fun to think about that now compared to where it was last year, where every question I was asked doing radio hits was always, what do they have in Lenora Sellers? And I said, well, it should tell you this, that last offseason, South Carolina did not go into the portal to get a quarterback. not one that would legitimately challenge Lenore. They picked up Robbie Ashford, but Robbie Ashford really struggled at Auburn. They brought him in there to push him, but they loved that kid. Before he ever took a snap as the starter, that coaching staff raved about Lenore Sellers.
Elijah, we were talking about earlier in the show, The Athletic took on the Herculean task of ranking all 136 projected starting quarterbacks in FBS. And Lenore Sellers came in at number 3. And here is the scouting take from Dane Brugler of The Athletic on Lenore Sellers. Quote, "This sounds hyperbolic, but Sellers might be the strongest quarterback I have ever evaluated. He isn't a one-dimensional quarterback by any means, but his superpower is the way he creates conflict for defenses with the ball in his hands, shrugging off contact and making tacklers miss. Hopefully, we see more A to B to C passing reads in the Gamecocks offense in 2025 because the raw talent is there for Sellers to compete for QB1 status." Do you take any umbrage with any of that scouting take from Dane Brugler?
And where would he need to take another step forward, Elijah, to get to that point?
I completely agree with that entire evaluation of Lenoris. And a lot of it is like the stuff that you can't teach, right? Like Anthony Richardson got drafted purely on traits. It didn't translate to a football field, and the numbers were atrocious for Anthony Richardson, but he got drafted on those traits alone. Lenoris has those traits, and he's way more accurate as a passer. He's way more improved at taking care of the ball a little bit. Like, he might be the hardest player to tackle in college football. I remember going to cover the game at Clemson, and it's the first snap from scrimmage for South Carolina. He drops back to pass, and 3 Clemson defensive linemen are surrounding him, and that place gets loud. And I've never heard a place go from that loud to that quiet that quickly, because as soon as he seemingly was wrapped up, he broke 3 tackles in the backfield, then runs up the field for a 20-yard gain and gets into Clemson territory. It's one of those just jaw-dropping things when you see it. And you guys saw it at Vanderbilt last year. There was that one play where he seemingly, sacked by 2 guys in the backfield, scrambles out and then finds Jared Brown 45 yards down the field. He's got a lot of just those jaw-dropping, wow. I don't want to completely draw the comparison to Cam Newton, but Cam Newton did a lot of that as well. And there are a lot of similarities in what they do. And in terms of what Lenoris needs to do to kind of elevate that and kind of secure his spot as the number 1 quarterback in the draft next year, that intermediate accuracy. He's got a great deep ball, and he has an absolute bazooka for an arm, and he's really accurate with it. But from 10 to 19 yards, still need to get a little better. He still barely completes a little over 50% of those passes. And sometimes last year you would see even on like timing routes and crossers, he would be a little bit behind or throwing, to the wrong shoulder or not necessarily hitting a receiver in stride. And a lot of that can be fixed with footwork. And I think one of the things that's going to benefit him this year is Mike Shula being the offensive coordinator. I think Dow Loggins did a fantastic job last year, but he's the head coach at Appalachian State now. But Mike Shula has done a really good job working with quarterbacks. And if you remember, I mentioned the Cam Newton fella earlier. His offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers for his MVP season was Mike Shula. So I think Mike Shula's got a lot of really good experience working with the type of quarterback that Lenore Sellers is. It can help him bridge that gap when it comes to that one particular thing he needs to improve upon.
We're talking to Elijah Campbell, 1025 The Game alum, drafted and developed by Chase McCabe. If we want to say it, now doing his thing, morning shows over on The Game.
He did it
in
all
South
on his
Carolina.
own, Willie.
Chase popping in there.
He did it all on his own.
Yes.
Chase did some developing. Everybody needs coaching.
I just gave you hugs when you needed them.
And I do like hugs.
That's part of the development process. Yes. Elijah Kama talking South Carolina Gamecocks with us. Now, as you mentioned, they really got into the discussion about the playoffs. It was really close. So what does the rest of the roster look like, Elijah? And if we look at their schedule, is it realistic they could get in there?
Ooh, the schedule's a bear. I mean, it really is. And that's where my hesitation on saying playoff, and going full Jim Mora on you guys. But the question marks on offense, like they got Rasul Faison from the transfer portal, who's an 1,100-yard rusher at Utah State. But there's also a question with his eligibility. He applied for that year of eligibility in January. Fellas, it's mid-July, and they have no answer as to whether or not he'll be ruled eligible or not. So they had to go into the portal again as a backup plan in case Faison's not cleared and pick up Isaiah Augusta from Colorado. And they've got a couple of returners in the running back room, but none of those guys have ever been a leading carrier for their college football team in their careers. So that's a question mark. They have some new guys on the offensive line. I like who they brought in on the offensive line in the transfer portal. And they also have an freshman All-American left tackle at Josiah Thompson. So if you're going to have, an A++ at quarterback, it helps to have the guy that's going to protect them. And then defensively, I mean, they had 4 players drafted in the first 45 picks of the NFL draft, and replacing those guys is going to be really tough. And they're doing it mostly through the portal. So if they can at least stop the run, that's my biggest thing with them. If they are good run stoppers and they're not getting gashed on the ground and you force teams to have to throw the ball, their secondary is good enough to force a lot of turnovers, and they'll win the turnover battle most games. And if that's the best case scenario for this team, is that they stop the run, and Jalen Kilgore, another guy, potentially a first-round pick in next year's NFL draft at corner, who led the league in interceptions last year in the SEC, if they're able to do that, be opportunistic as they were last year on the back end of that defense, I think Lenora Sellers is going to help you enough. And then, of course, I did all this without mentioning, they probably have one of the, 2 or 3 best edge rushers in America with Dylan Stewart. He's not draft eligible this year, but that's a guy that's going to be a top 10 pick in the 27 draft. He's got the eye of NFL mock drafters across America right now. So they have the quarterback, check. The guy who rushes the quarterback, check. A coach who prides himself in player development and getting transfers in to buy into the message early on, that checked out as well. So if those little things happen, like stopping the run, and you can get Rasul Faison as a running back to be eligible, then yeah, that's where things fall right for them and they can make the playoff.
Elijah, before we let you go, I would be remiss to not ask you about Shane Beamer, who is the least favorite person in the world, according to, it was Robbie Stanley's least favorite person in the world.
Oh, Robbie.
Robbie constantly refers to Shane Beamer as a goober. That is the word. That is the word that Robbie uses to describe Shane Beamer. So defend your boy, Elijah. Is Shane Beamer indeed a goober?
There are some goober qualities. He is very emotional. He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Almost got into a fight at the bowl game.
Oh,
last
I remember
year.
this. Yes,
and he was in the wrong on that one. In public about saying, maybe faking the T sign, while it might have been legal, also still might not be cool in terms of just like the unspoken rules of football. But Shane does. His players would run through a wall for him. And I think really that's the biggest defense of him, is that he gets guys to buy in and they develop players. In 23, the running back they had starting was a Division II transfer. He ran for over 1,000 yards. They got a Yale transfer, and Nick Arjulo. He ended up being a 7th-round draft pick for the Broncos. Demetrius Knight was turned down by almost any SEC school he tried to get into when he was in the portal from Charlotte. He became a 2nd-round draft pick. Kyle Kennard won the Nagurski Award as a transfer out of Georgia Tech. He went from being a good player at the ACC level to being one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in the country last year. He is a guy that if you love college football and you're into coaches who maybe aren't chasing all the 5 stars, but guys who develop throughout the course of a program, Shane Beamer's your guy. Oh, also, he let me call the first play of the spring game, and I ran a play out of the wishbone, and it picked up 29 yards.
Oh,
he's a real one for that.
Okay.
So he's all for having fun. So that's my defense.
Do you hear that, Robbie? He let Elijah call a play in the spring game.
But did they have the wishbone as one of your choices, or did you install the wishbone so you could run that play?
It's funny. I found a play online because I wanted to run a play out of the wishbone. I was like, I want to do the goofiest thing humanly possible if they're going to give me this power. So I was going through wishbone plays like for 3 hours. And then I stumbled upon one on YouTube that Texas ran against Iowa State in, I believe it was 2010. It was the first game after Darrell Royal died. And they ran the first play of the game out of the wishbone. And it was like a wishbone toss back to the quarterback, like a pitch to the running back, toss back to the quarterback, and hit a tight end about 20 yards down the field. Worked to perfection. I saw this and I'm like, oh, this is the jackpot. So I meet with Coach Beamer during his coach's show that was at Backstreet's Grill in downtown Columbia. And I said, Coach, here's the play. And I showed it to him. And then I diagrammed it. And he laughed and goes, all right, next commercial break, I'll call Mike Shula. We'll install it. And they installed it that morning. Didn't practice it. Lenora Sellers told me he nicknamed it Further, because that's also like their whole theme for the year. So they had a name for it. And they broke it out in the first play. Almost got blown up. I'm not going to lie. The pitch back was suspect. That thing almost, was overthrown. But then Lenore's caught the pitch back, threw a rifle to Jordan Dingle, picked up 29 yards. And I can now say that my play calling career average in terms of yards per play is 29. dare you to find another offensive play caller with that average.
That is
Can't
a
do it.
sterling average if I've ever heard one. Elijah Campbell, former member of 1025 The Game, forever a member of
Yes.
1025 The Game, now the co-host of the early game of 1075 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Elijah, great to catch up with you, my friend. I'm glad you're doing well. Hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to get to be on with you guys and to listen to you guys. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and it's really cool to get to be on as a guest after sitting behind that soundboard. Shout out my man David Janes as well, sat in that same chair. So it's a fun moment. I appreciate it, guys.
Of course. Thank you, Elijah.
Awesome.
Good
Thank
stuff.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Dunick, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan here with you. Chase and Big Joe coming up next, live from Atlanta, as SEC Media Days concludes. Our coverage has been sponsored by Brewhouse South. Experience Nashville's ultimate sports and brew hangout at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. Derek Mason will be back on air later today with Jake Lyman from 3 to 6 today and tomorrow. And tomorrow we will take some time to honor our good friend Derek Mason ahead of his induction into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. I do want to read a couple of text messages from our resident Shane Beamer hater, Robbie Stanley. We just had on Elijah Campbell from Columbia, South Carolina. I said to Robbie, I asked Elijah about your favorite goober. He said, oh, I heard. And I said, and? Robbie says, too much defending the gooberism from Elijah. And I said, but he let Elijah call a play. He goes, that part is pretty cool. So maybe Robbie has softened.
And it was a play that wasn't from their playbook. Like he drew up a play.
He installed the play. So, but great to hear from Elijah, who was a producer at this station, did some on-air work as well, now co-hosting the morning show in Columbia, South Carolina. So
I do think that's one of the cooler things about our existence as a station. We have developed a lot of good talent from the ground up. From the ground up, we are a success story from there.
So here's a story that I did not get to earlier that I teased. So I do want to get to it now. Yesterday, Brett McMurphy, veteran college football reporter, who I guess now works for on3.com.
He's good.
He wrote this from Atlanta. The Big Ten will not back off its preferred college football playoff format, guaranteeing the league 4 automatic qualifiers unless the SEC decides to add a 9th conference game, sources told On3. Quote, there's no way Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti moves off 4 AQs, a source said. With the Big Ten continuing to support the 4 AQ format and with the SEC unlikely to add a 9th conference game, the 12-team playoff will likely continue for the 2026 season. From a source, quote, we're staying at 12 teams in 2026 unless something moves, end quote.
Honestly, don't we need to give the 12-team thing a little time before we rashly move it up to 16? What do you want to see? What do people want to see? I'm okay with 12 for a while. Let's just go with 12 for a while. What's the hurry to go to 16? Let's chill. That's me anyway. I'm okay with let's look at how I guess it's a tournament, how the committee selects. Strength of schedule needs to be more of a discussion. Let's work on that part of it and how we get to the best 12 and how to seed the best 12. Those are the discussions. Growing it quickly to 16 to me is a rash decision. And I agree. Here's another part of this. Why should any league be guaranteed? I don't care how good your league is, how good you think your league is going to be every year, but why would you guarantee 4 teams from a league? That's dumb. Earn your way in. It'll work itself out. If you get 5 or 6, that's fine. But you can't guarantee 4 if 4 don't deserve to get in. That's wrong.
Matthew in Nashville says Eli Drinkwitz. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Drinkwitz?
Think so.
He wants 30 teams in the college football playoff.
Come on, man.
30.
Come on.
I saw this tweet that was retweeted into my timeline by Jared Stillman, who is not working today, although he is technically working, I guess, because he was on the radio earlier today. From On3, Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz pitched a 30-team college football playoff with play-in games. Quote, now you're talking about an opportunity for 30 teams, 30 fan bases to be excited and engaged in giving revenue. You've got 30 teams with players who have access to compete for championships. So for me, I think that makes a lot more sense. Why don't we just give everybody a friggin' participation trophy at this point? This is why I don't like the NCAA men's basketball tournament potentially being expanded. 64 teams was always the right amount. I live with the 68 because you have a couple of extra days of first 4 action, and those games tend to be relatively exciting. But that's just dumb. Brett McMurphy says, quote, last month I reported conference commissioners had decided to start over, quote unquote, on determining the 2026 CFP format. The Big Ten and SEC initially wanted 4 AQs each, with 2 each to the ACC and Big 12. The ACC and Big 12 pushed back, while the SEC coaches later publicly did not support the 4AQ model, instead preferring the 5AQ plus 11 at-large format for a 16-team playoff. However, there is no chance, quote-unquote, a Big 10 will support the 5-11 format, a source said, as long as the SEC remains at 8 conference games. Because the Big 10 only plays 3 non-conference games compared to 4 for the SEC, the Big 10 feels it's at a disadvantage if the selection committee picks 11 at-large teams.
But that depends on what the selection process entails. And that's where we need to focus the discussion, is to have better metrics, better understanding of the metrics, what teams need to schedule, whether you have 8 or 9 conference games, what should the schedule mean? And I think the 5 and 11 is a better way to go. I would love to see, if you go to 16, another way for another little guy to get in there. I want that element in. If we're going to go to 16, there should be another little guy in there, not another big guy. And this is where I don't like the power that the Big 10 and the SEC hold over all of this. It's not best for the game. It's being run and influenced too much by the people who hold the cards, and that's what Greg Sankey even used his analogy. We have a good hand. Well, no, duh. Yes, I know you have a good hand, but let's try to be careful how we wield the power, and let's look at the game as a whole. They can't do that. They won't do that. It's all about the money and looking out for their own conference. But guaranteeing 4 teams from a league, that's not how it should work. It's not how it should work. It should naturally happen.
They need to either poop or get off the pot with this.
Stay at 12 for a while. That's my advice.
What's the deadline? December 1st?
They're not going to listen to me.
They just need to
December 3rd, I think is that right?
I think it was December 1st.
Maybe yeah, okay.
At the beginning of December.
Yes.
They need to either poop or get off the pot with this. I'm tired of hearing about it. They just went to 12. I agree. Let's give 12 a chance. Give 12 a chance.
And the SEC is not going to go to 9 because the Big 10 is leveraging them to do that. They won't do that. And essentially that will keep it at 12, right?
Yes. Oh man.
And that's okay. Let's keep it at 12. Let's research how this 12 thing is working after a couple years before we jump to go to 16.
It's never enough, Willie.
It's never enough.
Everybody needs more. And they need it
it's
now.
It's not good.
No, it's not good.
It's not good for the game, just like the extra wild cards in baseball are not a good thing. Even though it helped my Mets get in last year. Didn't forget that, but it's just not the right way to do baseball postseason.
Quickly, before we go, I do have a piece of advice for all of you listening. If you're having an affair, don't go to a Coldplay concert. Don't do it.
What arena were we in?
I don't know where this is happening, but it's gone viral. Apparently, the CEO of a company was outed for having an affair with his HR chief after they appeared on the big screen by coincidence at a Coldplay concert.
Whoa.
Big lesson learned there.
We started the show by me recounting a couple of wonderful nights I had watching Depeche Mode. I've also had a couple of wonderful nights watching Coldplay. And I never saw anything like that.
By the way, Coldplay is here next week.
All right.
So if you're having an affair and you live here,
lay low.
Don't go to the Coldplay concert.
Or go, but just be aware that you could be on the Jumbotron at any time. And outed. Chris Martin, isn't that what he did? He said something, right?
I haven't heard it. I've only seen it.
Like he made motion. Hey, this guy's having a great time up here or something, right?
So they pointed to him on the Jumbotron, and he said, and then as soon as they did that, they hide their faces. Yeah. He said either they are very nervous to be on screen or they're having an affair.
Well, he was right about one thing.
They're really nervous.
Indeed. So I'm just saying, I guess Coldplay is here next week. So if you are living here and you are listening to this and you are having an affair, don't go to the Coldplay concert or don't make it so obvious when you're at the Coldplay concert.
Prepare accordingly.
That's my piece of advice. That'll do it for us today. Chase and Big Joe conclude their coverage of SEC Media Days from Atlanta. We will be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock one more time On behalf of Derek, be loved, love on your people. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Peace.